Hi, Anthony. I'm really glad to see you. Thanks for being with me here today.
No, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Me too. I'm excited to learn more about Plex by Rockwell Automation and its connected worker solution. But first, I want to get your insights. I know you're very knowledgeable about what's happening in the industry. So, first, though, tell me a little bit about what Plex does.
Yeah, I mean, in its very simplest terms, Plex is all about helping manufacturers be more productive, helping the employees be more safe, and producing higher quality products. And we do that by driving operational rigor, governance, and control at the shop floor, but then using that technology and that operational rigor to drive insights to manufacturers so they can make better and more informed decisions and more prescriptive types of decisions. And so, at its basic form, what we do is we use technology to drive outcomes for manufacturers.
Well, with that kind of function in the industry, you see a lot. So, can you tell me what trends or industry conversations you're hearing about most these days, especially challenging challenges you're hearing from your customers?
Yeah, and there it's interesting. I have a manufacturing background before Plex. I ran a manufacturing facility and always tried to use technology to help us be more competitive and solve the problems. And that goes back a fair number of years. But the problems manufacturers are dealing with today are the same problems that I was dealing with 15 years ago, which are you think about things like the labor and the workforce challenges. How do I get higher OEE and drive more productivity? And I say manufacturing is a business of pennies where, it's always margin constrained. And so you're trying to make a better, higher quality product and protect that margin. And so when you think about it, those are the things that, manufacturers are contending with. It's just that the rate and pace of change is accelerating and these problems and the impact of these problems are compounding. And the other side is manufacturing is a knowledge-based business, right? There are all sorts of factors that go into making a product, but also what can go wrong with a product. And you need insight, but also skills. And so the exit of the skilled labor workforce is really a challenge. And so the question I hear a lot from manufacturers is you will hear them articulate it in things like, AI, in MES, in quality management, in connected worker. But it's really the thing that those are technologies they're using to try to solve the problem, which is how do I make more money? But how do I deal with these big challenges like, the skilled worker shortage? And something like 2.1 million jobs will go unfilled by 2030. The number of workers will reduce by 56% by 2050, which is, just crazy to think about
That's
those kinds of
frightening.
numbers. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the workforce is something like 10,000 people retiring a day. And so you kind of do that math outward. That's why people in the industry are talking about like, okay, how do I use AI? Because I may not have the person here who's been here for 30 years, right? And so I think that's really the way to the conversation we're having with manufacturers. And I was talking with a customer the other day, and the way they articulated to me, which is I think the right way to think about it, and it's the problem we're trying to solve or help manufacturers solve is how do I make someone who's been here for 30 days as productive, as safe, as producing as high quality as someone who has been here for 30 years? And that's really where the technology comes into play.
yeah, that skilled workforce challenge is number one on most manufacturers' list. And how do you see things changing and evolving in the next few years? What do you see happening? I mean, you talk about AI. We get a lot of questions and people don't know how to use it or where to start,
Yeah.
and what else to use with it. Where do you see happening?
Yeah. Generally, moving towards more, I think there is always going to be people inside of a manufacturing operation. And this is because this sort of combination of autonomous operations where you have sort of self-directing, self-correcting, prescriptive technology. And that's a lot what we do with our MES, our quality management and connected worker solution. But then also the people that are inside of the plant, giving them the tools so that they can be you can do more and make quicker decisions. And so as you think about that, data and digital tooling and cloud-based technology that's connected into the edge and the execution layer, in that sort of full system sort of approach where it's not the science experiment to try to stitch everything together, is really becoming more and more important. Because the skilled worker shortage is not just those people who are doing things on the shop floor actually doing the work, but it's also in the front and back office and in the IT staff. And so, I think where we see the industry going more broadly is, again, this sort of full edge to cloud execution to cloud-based applications, but using that because it's orchestrating the operations, but then also providing the data and the insights so that you can make quick, real-time, and even prescriptive decisions. And that is a long future, and a lot of manufacturers have a digital transformation journey to go on. And so part of what we are doing to help manufacturers, because this is what we hear more and more, is like, just I need to start somewhere, right? Like, that's a great vision, we need to get there, but I need to solve today's problem with, I got 40 people just walked out my door and I can't replace them. How do I get another 40 people in, or just 4 people in? And again, driving more productivity.
Yeah, and that's frightening. Things like that are happening. So I'd like to talk specifically about technology and some of the developments that are helping with some of these problems, or at least mitigating some of them. What are some of the latest developments at Plex, and how are these addressing these challenges in the manufacturing industry?
Absolutely. So, we have a cloud-based manufacturing execution, quality management, and connected worker solution set, but it's all part of the same platform, and that allows manufacturers to like come in and solve the quality problem, solve the connected worker problem, solve the manufacturing execution problem, and scale up. And so I'll go back to the outcome and come back to the connected worker technology, because I think that is something that is it's not only innovative, but it's solving the problem. If you think about the workforce challenge, it's not only sort of augmenting what you have in automating the work, but it's also driving retention of the people. And so as you have workers that today, and as you bring new ones in, it's really, really expensive if you bring them in and train them and then they walk out the door. And so, we solve this holistic challenge, and we call it affectionately the four P's is how we solve it. And so number one is, people want to know that the work that they do matters and that they are contributing to something. So I don't want to just come in and produce, a thing and go out the door. And so we call the first P is about connecting people to purpose. So helping understand what it is that I do, why my work matters, how it's contributing to the broader purpose of the company, and even beyond that to the community. And we do that through a couple of things as we think about continuous improvement, as we think about, we have a strategic metrics and guidance that helps connect, here's the upper order strategy and why it matters, and then connect that all the way down to the work. And we've got some really interesting examples of how customers have been using that and leveraging that to drive that retention and productivity. So the first P is connecting people to purpose. The second P is all about connecting people to people and collaboration. And so it's very easy to quit a task. It's kind of easy to quit a job. It's very hard to quit a team. Like, we're all part of and want to be part of a team and a community. And so by increasing this sort of concept of teaming and people to people through things like collaboration, and making it easy to collaborate, make it easy to get your problems and answers solved, allow us to drive some of that retention. And so we've embedded collaboration features, and I'll talk about these in maybe a little bit more detail. And then the third and fourth pieces are, people to productivity, again, making it super easy to do the work. So connecting the application to the digital tools. So if you think about like, hey, I've got a smart, torque tool, I don't want to have to worry about setting it up. I don't want to have to worry about a manual wrench. Like, am I doing it right, doing it wrong? It just becomes very easy to drive productivity. And then helping people understand the people to process, which is the fourth piece. So I understand what the upstream and what the downstream impacts of my work are, and making sure that I'm doing things correctly. And then likewise, the person who's doing it, a couple of operations upstream from me are doing it correctly. But it also helps as I think about how do I advance my career, right? And so I can understand the whole landscape. And so as we think about the connected worker suite, those are really the problems that we've solved. And if you kind of walk around in my head, it's always a circle. So people to purpose, people to people, people to productivity, and people to process. It's all interconnected, part of the same platform. The people to purpose piece is very much around strategic initiatives and communication and connecting that all the way down from that to the individual work, so people can also see the things that they're doing and the metrics. So if you think about my productivity, how am I doing versus Theresa's productivity, and how does that match against what is expected of me? So I have this real-time information and I know what I'm doing matters. As you think about people to people and that collaboration, we have embedded Microsoft Teams inside of the application. So it makes it very easy to, like, hey, Anthony's got a question. I could maybe try to run around the plant and find someone to help answer me. But that's kind of scary. I just got here. And so, but it's really easy. Like, hey, here's my team, and we have a thread going. And again, it's all secure and resilient based on enterprise security grade capabilities, so that, it's not just, a bunch of people like, sending emojis back and forth, and we don't have to worry about data leakage. And then again, as we think about guided work instructions, so task by task and step by step instructions with digital and interactive work instructions, even things like pulling in the model for 3D so you can animate it and interact with it. You can see exactly, like, step one, do this, step two, do that. And here's what it looks like in a very digital and intuitive, easy to use way. And then all of the process orchestration, that's really what the connected worker solution is all about. But again, it's a modern, intuitive interface, so it looks like what you would expect to use if you were, out in your personal life using your phone or any sort of web app. But again, with all the enterprise grade security baked in, and it just connects everybody, which is where the connected piece comes in. And it's a holistic sort of approach and solution that not only drives productivity, but it helps drive retention as well.
Well, it sounds like it's really powerful. Can you tell me a bit more about it? Especially, it sounds like I understand it has digital work instructions and interactive work instructions, but a lot more features. Can you tell me about it?
Absolutely. One of the things that we found was, we have this product-led, customer-driven mantra, which means, we know what our strategy and our direction is, but we take feedback and we're super close to the customers. And so, it's not good enough for us to just be dreaming up really big ideas. It has to be anchored in customer feedback. And so, we were talking with different groups of our customers from different industries, and they were saying, like, especially with new employees, there's two problems we want to solve. One is make it really easy for new employees to know one by one, step by step, what they need to do. But then you got to kind of take, like, the stigma and the reading and all of that out of it, because not everybody's got the time to read through a crazy long document. But the other piece is, we need to start collecting the information and the insight to drive continuous improvement, but also use that data as you think about things like artificial intelligence. And so we need to build our work instructions into a digital platform that we have access to across all of our plants, so that we can drive more autonomous operations, and likewise continuous improvement. And all of that is the backdrop for what we have with guided and interactive work instructions. And so at its simplest form, guided work instructions are saying, like, hey, if I need you to go do, assemble this thing, right? Well, there's a lot that goes into assembling. Like, you've seen an IKEA, sort of manual, like, they make it really easy to take this complex thing and put it together. And so it's just that step by step instruction with the ability to have text and images alongside of it. So it's not just, reading it or checking the box, it's guiding the worker through the work, and also teaching and training. And all of that is actually linked back up to, it's the same thing and the same documentation they would see in their onboarding, right? So there's this consistent thread throughout, but then it just guides them through step one, right? Disassemble, get your packaging, get your nuts, get your bolts, put your things here. Step two, right? Step three, and beyond. And then the interactive work instructions is an advanced capability where it allows our customers to author their work instructions. So typically work instructions are on paper, they're in binders, some Excel spreadsheets, maybe make Microsoft Word, but you can author those in a very intuitive, easy to use way, certainly multilingual, but things like multimedia as well, as you think about videos, as you think about pictures, but even animations on the model itself. If you think about complex environments where, we go back to the IKEA example, trying to assemble that, sometimes a picture doesn't do it. And so you can connect up to the enterprise systems and pull that information in and just show in a 3D rendering very simply, very easily, just exactly how to do the work. And it certainly improves productivity and quality. But if you think about it from the new employee's perspective, it can be daunting and just a little bit scary, like to come in and be like, I need to do this, right? And so we're reducing that stress and that anxiety and that stigma because it's not complicated to do this. And even if it looks complicated, we're just taking you through it step by step. It's okay, right? Here's all the visual instructions. And then behind the scenes, as employees may be struggling, with a certain piece of it, it may be taking longer than we expected. And we can see that at the macro level. Because of the collaboration capabilities, we know a lot of the questions, or our customers know a lot of questions that are being asked. We can either say, hey, look, it's Anthony's got a problem, you need to train him again. Or we could say, hey, there's something actually in the design of the product or the design of the process that needs to be corrected. And you can give that real-time, feedback loop so that you're just continuously optimizing.
Well, there's a lot of features. We've been talking about the skilled labor shortage. What specifically, beyond what you've talked about, are there other features specifically targeting mitigating that labor shortage?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tie this back just quickly to a customer story. We have a customer who had, in the automotive industry, was struggling with quality, but also struggling with retention. And we were talking to them, and they said, "Yeah, Anthony, it's really tough. We make glove boxes, and nobody really wants to make glove boxes." And the joke goes, like, the only thing that doesn't go into your glove box is actually gloves. But we're talking to them, and they're like, "But it's really important because the glove box is not just for your fast food napkins; it's a safety system so that on impact, it is designed to absorb the blow." So that the passenger doesn't take impact. So it's actually protecting and saving lives. Now, nobody knows that. And
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. And we're like, well, we need to help tell that story, but also help tell that story through metrics. And so one of the things that we built in is, again, we talk a lot about the strategic objectives and initiatives module and how that connects into individual tasks and key measurables. That's a component of the product. But it's also in how they do this communication. And so we put in as, being able to connect at the highest level of the mission down to the individual work, and that all the way back up again, just by that subtle twist of being able to communicate that from an objective level. And they started talking about accidents and how the quality of the product saves lives, and connecting that down in through the measurables. It increased their retention double-digit percentage points. And likewise, their quality went up because everybody who was on the line was like, this thing has got to get out. The first pass yield has got to be right, because it could be, someone in my family, and who doesn't want to make sure they're saving lives. And so, it's a good example of the cultural pieces that we try to drive towards, but then also building that into, again, the technology so that you can cascade that down throughout the organization and into the individual piece of work.
Now, I know Plex has a large portfolio of solutions beyond, in addition to Connected Worker. How are your other solutions addressing other issues that manufacturers are facing, like quality, safety, supply chain challenges, or other concerns?
Yeah, and it's a really good question. One of the things we fundamentally believe is that cybersecurity and cyber resiliency is more and more important. And so, while we talk about these things as independent solutions, they're all part of the same product and the same platform, because you don't want a bunch of disparate applications that are stitched together. Those are all surface attack areas or attack surfaces for potential cybersecurity risk. But also the harmonization of the data behind the scenes. And so all the things I talked about with Connected Worker are a component of our manufacturing execution system and a quality management system, because they're all interlinked. And so as we look at, the other problems that we solve with, you think about manufacturing execution as an example, is really driving that autonomous operations and that built-in quality. And so that we can connect to the edge, we can orchestrate the process, we can drive more efficiency and productivity, and then likewise drive more prescriptive operations. And so it really all comes back to those fundamentals of manufacturing, which is I need to increase my throughput, increase my productivity, increase my quality, and do that safely, and likewise be able to attain margin. And so, it's our ability to orchestrate the whole of the plant. And we do something that's a little bit different. Again, most of us come from manufacturing, so we've lived the challenges. But we have what we call an elastic MES. So we can take it from the moment it hits the dock to the moment all the way through the process, all the quality, all the worker components that we talked about, all the way out to when it goes to the door and every process in between, but in a way that allows, customers are again saying like, hey, I just got a QMS problem, or I got a worker problem, or I just got a productivity problem, and then be able to logically expand over time. But those also connect right into the execution layer so that we're talking directly to the equipment, getting that feedback from the equipment, and using that to continuously help our manufacturing customers continuously improve.
Well, Anthony, I appreciate you sharing all this information. It's very useful, and I appreciate you spending time with me today. Thank you.
Oh, likewise, I enjoyed it very much, and it's been a big bunch of fun. I was happy to.
A big bunch of fun. And listeners, as always, we appreciate you joining us today. You can check out additional resources in our show notes for this episode. As always, I'm Theresa Houck with the Journal, and we'll chat again soon.